Welcome to My Life in Football, and Steve, of course, is with me again, and a good friend of Steve's is joining us today as well, and we're pleased to say that Liam O'Neill is joining us today, so welcome, Liam.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problems at all. I mean, Liam, we always start with the same question. I mean, literally, how was it you managed to get involved in football, not just non-league football, but football and professional football, in the first place?
I think it's like any young player. You aspire to be a full-time player, don't you? When you're growing up as a boy, and I think that it was quite clear from when I was really young that I'd been brought up in a footballing environment with my dad. I mean, my dad didn't play as a professional, but he played non-league football, and he helped. So there's the club was founded in 1958, a club called VS Rugby, and I'm from Rugby, obviously, originally, and. My dad went through. Played in the team, played in the reserves, played in the first team, helped build the stand, and he was like on the committee, then on the board. So I was brought up as a youngster in a football environment, even before I could even walk. So VS Rugby was our local non-league club, close to my heart, and I sort of grew up there, so I understood. The chemistry that non-league fans have with the players in them days through the late 70s and through the 80s. And it was just something that was ingrained in me, really, football. And then, obviously, I played for my dad's team as a kid. And then I went to, I started for Coventry as a schoolboy at, I think I was 14. I went when I was 12, I started when I was 14. And I left Coventry at 16. And then I had 4 or 5 years as a full-time player. I had a spell in the A team at Blackburn, and then I played in the youth team at Mansfield. Then I went to Cheltenham for 3 or 4 years, and I had some lovely friends and had some great memories as a young full-time player. But it didn't quite work out for me. And I remember I would never have played at the top level because I purely wasn't good enough. There was a pivotal moment in my career. I'd obviously growing up at VS Rugby as a kid, they had a manager called Jimmy Knox, and Jimmy Knox was a Scottish guy, and he'd managed VS Rugby were in the doldrums in the early 80s, and he took over VS Rugby. He was Bedworth United manager, and he was a vociferous Glaswegian, and got into players. And I can remember I first met him when I was probably about, I don't know, 8 or 9, 7 or 8, something like that, and I thought, wow, imagine having to play for this guy. He's so, so raws at players. Anyway, he took VS Rugby to Wembley in 1983 and they won the FA Vars. And I remember going, one of the best days ever. Anyway, I sort of was allowed to train with the first team because my dad was on the committee as a kid. And I built up a really good relationship with him. And I was very fortunate because I was given my debut in the first team at VS Rugby. And they were Southern League team then when I was 15. And I think I'm probably the youngest player to ever play in the first team at 15. And then he promised me that if he has a testimonial, that he would let me play in it. And his brother was Archie Knox, who at the time was Alex Ferguson's number 2 at Man United. And he was true to his word. And for his testimonial, I'd gone to Blackburn and then left Blackburn and I started Cheltenham. And I was at Cheltenham at the time. I was playing for Ali Robertson, who used to play for West Brom. And Jimmy Knox has said, if we play Man United, you can play against your heroes. So I'm a Man United fan. So there you go. And he stuck to his word, even though I wasn't playing for his team. I remember coming back for this game, and we played Man United in this pre-season testimonial. There was probably about 5,000 or 6,000 at Rugby that night, and they played virtually the FA Cup 1991 winning team. They played virtually the full first team, like Jim Leighton, Mal Donaghy, Pallister, Kanchelskis, Robson, Mark Robbins. So Lee Martin, who got the winner against Palace, they had a hell of a side, and we beat them 1-0. And it was just an unbelievable experience for me, and I got on for about the last 15 or 20 minutes, and to play against my heroes like Brian Robson and people like that, it's just unbelievable. Well, anyway, the next night, the irony of it was, I think it was 91. The next night, I went back to Cheltenham and I played a reserve game on the Thursday night, I think it was, and I broke my leg. I did my tib and fib, dislocated my ankle, and in 1991, that could have been a career threatener. And anyway, I was very lucky really in the end. I was out for 14 months and I had another 2 years left at Cheltenham, so I saw it out. And I'd sort of, they had big hopes for me at Cheltenham when I first went. And I remember signing, and I played on the Tuesday. I'd been there playing for Jim Barron. He was the manager when I first signed. And I was straight in the first team, scored on my debut for the first team in a pre-season game, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to do all right here, blah, blah. And then it never really worked out for me, but I had a lovely time, brilliant club. Cheltenham Town are an absolutely brilliant football club. Still go there, still got friends. In fact, I went away with an ex-teammate, a lad called Andrew Tucker, last weekend for Easter. So we've got really good friends there. And I've always got Cheltenham Town are like real special place in my heart because I had 4 great years. But there's a story when I was there. So that leg break really didn't ruin it, but I still had a good non-league career after that. But it kind of killed me in terms of full-time football. But it's quite interesting. I was at Cheltenham and I went on loan to Atherstone. I think I was 19, and Atherstone United in them days were a Southern League Premier club. And I was playing for a manager called Mick Brooks, so I went there on loan anyway. I remember my first game was in the Southern Prem, and I was on loan, and we had Chelmsford City away. And they had an old centre-half called Paul Brush. I think he used to play for West Ham, I think, big centre-half. And of course, me being sort of 18, 19, a bit cocky, playing just off the striker. And it was a real welcome to non-league football. I nutmegged him after 5 minutes down that side of the old ground at Chelmsford. And there was all their fans down that side. Anyway, getting a bit cocky. Ball goes out of play. Next thing I wake up seeing stars. And I had my nose smashed across my face, blood everywhere. And I'll never forget, it was off the ball, nothing I could do. And I'll never forget, he pulled me up as if like in front of the referees to say, oh, you're okay, son, didn't mean it. And he pulled me up by the hairs under my arms. So I got a broken nose, got blood everywhere, couldn't feel my arms. I'm in a crumpled heap. And it was almost like a welcome to, that was my first memory of like real non-league football, like welcome to non-league football, broken nose, no hairs left under my arms. And it just taught me a real valuable lesson. Don't get too cocky when you're a young player. And I took that on board for the rest of my career. So yeah, that's really my early part of being a player. And then after that, I had another 13 years playing non-league, and it was thoroughly enjoyable.
When you said you was 15, sorry, Steve, when you said you was 15, I mean, what was that like starting, going into men's football at 15? I mean, what was that feeling like to go up against fully grown men at 15?
Yeah, I mean, it was, to be honest, I think it's like any player that plays goes from like junior football into senior football. I think you're in a career where it doesn't really faze you because you're a young lad, you don't play with any fear, you don't know fear, you don't understand fear, you just go to play a game of football. And as long as you understand that, you wouldn't be playing if you weren't a good player, but it's just having an understanding of making sure that don't be slow on the ball, make sure you get into space quick, don't use too many touches. And I think that's something that I took on board because in them days, especially I played a few 18 games for Blackburn. You're playing in them days, it was first team, reserves, 18, B team. And then when I played for Cheltenham, we played so that was in Pontins, and then we played in the Overland combination in the reserves at Cheltenham at the time. And you'd be playing against teams like Bristol City, Swansea, Cardiff, Blues, Bournemouth, Exeter, Torquay, them sort of teams, Plymouth. But in them days, I was like 16, 17, but you weren't playing against like 23s now where they're young pros playing. There could be, the first thing you do is look on the team sheet at Bournemouth away or Bristol City away, and you'd see, oh Christ, Bob Taylor, Mark Hazelwood, or Bournemouth, one night at Bournemouth, there was Jamie Redknapp and Luther Blissett, and you'd look at the team sheet and there'd be first team players that were on the bench on the Saturday and that weren't on the bench on the Saturday. You'd be playing against proper professionals. And I remember played I think the reserve game for Cheltenham when I was 16, by Bristol Rovers away. It was Tuesday night, and they used to play at a ground called Keynsham Town. Bristol Rovers reserves used to play. And I remember looking at the team sheet, and Bristol Rovers basically put their first team out. And there was people like, you probably heard of them, Gary Penrice, Aidy Boothroyd played, Billy Hayes, or Andy Rees. It was virtually a full first team. And we got beat 8-0. And that was one of them where you think, my God, you sink or swim. And when you're getting a run around in games like that, and the other thing, there was most of those teams in them days, and then when you're playing in reserve teams, most of the games were played at stadiums. So Cardiff was Ninian Park, Swansea was the Vetch, Bournemouth was being caught, Bristol City, Ashton Gate. They played at the stadiums, whereas nowadays it's just at training grounds or, you know, I've just said obviously Bristol Rovers, they didn't play at the stadium because they didn't have one at the time. They were at Twerton. But it was quite, it was a great grounding for me. And that's why what I do now, obviously, with young players, I think it's really important that young players get a taste of senior football if they're ready, first and foremost, but as early as you possibly can. And I think especially lads that are at league clubs now, I think there's pluses and minuses for 23s and 21s football. Yeah, of course there is. But I still think, in my opinion, the way to go would be to the scholarship programs, each appeal, whatever it's called now, would be 3-year scholarship programs. So that gap between 18 and 19, where lads get released at 18, I think they could fill that year with a year out on loan in step 5. You know, not even step 4, step 5, because that's reality football. And the role that I work in, and the job I do coaching at my academy now, we try to implement reality into football in terms of, you know, it's a tough game, it's a tough environment, it's a tough business, and you've got to learn quick if you're going to survive in it, especially in going from junior football to senior football. But yeah, I think that would it was a harsh learning curve, but you didn't have much time to think about it. You're in it. That was it.
Going back to your Valley Sports days, Liam. Hi, mate. Going back to your Valley Sports days, you must have seen one of my best friends from the 80s, Ian Crawley.
Oh.
God rest his soul, play. He was a fantastic bloke, one of the nicest blokes you'd ever meet in football, but a real good player as well. I mean, he played in that Wembley side, didn't he, in '83?
For the winner, yeah. In fact, Crawl, I think, still might hold the record. He scored in the Vars final, got the winner, and he scored in the trophy final, got the winner for Telford about 2 years.
Yeah. It
might still be held, but like, you know, I grew up watching Crawl, and it's you very very rarely see. Well, you couldn't get away with it now. What he used to do to goalkeepers, he'd put them in the back of the net, Steve, wouldn't he? Wave his arm into the air and say, "Hold on." We'd bundle the ball in and the goalie, but like, absolute gentleman, gentle giant, wasn't he?
Yeah, lovely. I mean, you know, I got to know him really well when he was at Kettering, and it was awful when he passed away so early. And his dad Tommy, who was another good player in his day, and a lovely bloke, used to support him all the way through his career when he was playing.
Yeah, I remember we had it might have been the 50th anniversary game that Keith Coughlin, who founded VS Rugby. I think it was the 50th anniversary of the club, and or it might have been it might have been a benefit game for Crawl. I'm not sure, but I hadn't. We had some like fundraising events, you know, after he'd been diagnosed, and he was obviously, you know, deteriorating with his health. And we had a red tie night in the Racket Centre Club in Coventry one night, and a fundraiser for him. And I hadn't seen him for 2 or 3 years, and obviously I knew deteriorated, his health had deteriorated. And I remember it was quite a sad feeling, and there was teammates I used to play with, there was players that I used to look up to. Some of the VS Rugby players I was playing in this benefit game with that I used to like watch every week. So that's good for me, even though it's a non-league club. It's still good for me because they were my heroes as players. And then having played for the club myself, and then Crawl came out at the stand at Butlin Road and for the game, and he obviously in his wheelchair, and it was very emotional because there was, you know, players that played with and he played with, and he was the, you know, shadow of himself, and you know, we're all in tears, you know, and it made you feel so humble that the last time a lot of these people had seen him, he was 6'2", big, 15-zone striker, and he was just, you know, it wasn't the same Crawl, you know, and it was a real sad moment. But nice that we all got together before he, you know, sadly passed away, that we were able to, you know, celebrate, you know, a few things with him, and you know, he was able to, you know, shake our hands and that. But yeah, I mean, that I'm surprised, if I'm being honest, that there hasn't been some sort of a stand named after him at VS Rugby, or the Rugby Town as they're known now, because of scoring the greatest goal in the club's history. You know, but yeah, like, you know, I'll God bless him.
Yeah.
So how much difference was it for you, Liam? You know, playing in like professional football and then coming into sort of non-league. I mean, I know you said about the challenge and that, but was it was that sort of a bigger challenge than you expected though at the time?
Yeah, it was. I mean, in them days, an injury like that, a break of the tib and the fib and a dislocation of the ankle, that is, well, it could have been career threatening. And another story, really, it's quite funny, but it wasn't funny because it actually wasn't funny at all. But I remember doing it, and then a really good friend of mine, Andy Tucker, who's played for Cheltenham and Gloucester, I used to live with his mum and dad down there, and I remember I got injured, and his dad was the first player on the pitch, Ken, and held my hand, and I was in absolute agony, and blah blah blah. I remember that I was in hospital that night. My dad was at VS Rugby. They'd been training on Thursday night, and they phoned VS Rugby, phoned the club at Butlin Road. Ken did. Andy Tucker's dad said, "Yeah, Liam's had an accident, and he's hurt his leg. I think he needs to come to Cheltenham." So mum and dad drove straight to Cheltenham. Anyway, they literally just thought I'd just played Sunday morning football, and they just stuck me in a waiting room. Oh, you broke your leg, you'll be all right, you know. Stick him in a cast, he'll be okay. And it wasn't until my mum and dad my mum sort of kicked up a fuss. She said, "Well, you do know that he's full time. He plays for the Robins, right?" And they went, "No, we didn't." And anyway, to this day, this is God's honest truth. They flew a surgeon in from Swindon called Mr. Misra, and he said that I was in straight to the theatre within 2 or 3 hours, and he said, when I came out, my mum said to me, "Thank you so much," says it was literally 95% luck that they manipulated 3 hours to get my bones back in place without putting any ironmongery in or whatever in, no pins and plates. Pure luck that it was able to. And if I'd have had them pins and plates, who knows? I might not have been able to play again. But anyway, I went into my plaster room, and I think there's a jockey, Peter Scudamore, used to be a jockey. And I think it was him or one of I think Dunwoody or Scudamore. And he was in the next bed. He felt he'd had a fall at Cheltenham. And it was ever so funny. And like, I thought, well, I don't feel quite so bad now. But yeah, it was really difficult. It was really difficult because I was out 14 months. And in them days, there wasn't the individual rehabilitation programs of physios. And it was just, it wasn't as detailed as it is these days. If young players now have an injury like that, there's so much more mollycoddling that goes on, towards your comeback and all that sort of thing. And, I wasn't left on my own. I had, decent, I remember Billy Sabatella, the physio at Cheltenham, he helped me out a lot. But, I came back home, and I probably, if I'm being honest, I don't think I helped myself with my rehab, if I'm being brutally honest. In those days, and Steve will probably agree with me, you were just told to go home, eat loads of steak, drink plenty of stout, and your bones will recover fine. So I probably took the Guinness to the extreme. And I came back 14 months later. I remember I did, it was on my birthday actually, the January after, and the first team I think were playing Colchester with somebody at home. And I remember I sat at home and I put me like the trousers on and shirt and tie and blah blah to go to the game. I think we had Colchester at home or something. And I couldn't get my trousers on. Because it was the last time I'd worn them was at football. And I did some widths across the pitch, and I bet you I only did 15 widths. It was the first time I'd ran. And it just really told me that I was miles off it. And I was like going out sort of Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Oh, it's all right. 4 or 5 pints of Guinness, that's fine. I'm all, medicinal. It's all for a good, good cause and da. But, little did I know, but it's, that sort of, it did. Look, the bottom line is I feel fortunate that I was able to kick another football again after such a bad injury. So I've not got any, I didn't know football anything. Everything I've got at the moment, I owe to football. So I'm not going to use that as an excuse as to why I didn't, why I didn't play in the league. That's not an excuse. That is just, I don't think I was good enough. That's
like the David Boost injury, wasn't it, as well? For Coventry, he did the same sort of thing. And
He did.
It's weird how that the medication on the medical side of football has actually moved on.
Yeah,
you could have done that sort of injury now, or you'd have done that sort of injury now. You might be sort of 6 months or whatever and back.
You're right. I think you're right, Dave. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that it would probably be, probably 6 months. It would be 6 months, because and especially if you're at a club that's full time, the days. I mean, I remember it was the plasters. I must have had. I had a plaster up to my groin for 3 months. So the knee was you couldn't. There was no mobility to your knee because they wouldn't let me bend my knee in case the tib and the fib moved. Then after 3 months, I had a plaster called the salmiento, which was just above the knee, so you could get partial movement on the knee. Then you had that. Then you had just a bottom boot, bottom pot. And you think to yourself, I was in plaster for 5.5 months. But nowadays, you'd probably have it on. You might not even have it on. You might have a plaster for a couple of weeks, and then a walking boot for another 3 months, and then you'd be able to slowly weight there. And the way things have changed is miraculous, really. But it's it's just one of them. It's one of them. But it's one thing it has taught me over the years is that your career is so short lived, and it's hands in the bag every time you go out on the pitch. And I say to all the young players that I work with today, you've got to treat every game. I know it's all right saying this. It's easy to say, and they'll probably listen to me and think, yeah, whatever. You're just an old devil now. But it's true. You've got to treat every game like it's your last game, because it could well be your last game. A lesson I do give to all our young players.
Where did you make your comeback?
Right, so we had a friendly against West Ham, and I was 18 on Saturday morning at a place called the Folly. And I remember I got booked, even in the pre-season. I got booked after about 10 seconds, because my thought process was, if I go and smash somebody, even though I'd had a few kicks in training, they had the kick-off, it went back to the central midfield play. And I thought, if I go and smash him, then, and I didn't tackle, I didn't like a tackle, I hate a tackle, but I need to test this. So what I did, I hunted the ball down, and I just walloped somebody, got booked, and that was it. I was buzzing. I got booked and I was over the moon because, my leg's all right, I'm fine, and that was it then. So yeah, that was it. And then I think that pre-season, so that was it. I just knew. There was one, when I was still at Cheltenham, there was one game where I thought as a reserve game and combination, and there was one game I thought I'd done it again. We had Birmingham City at home, and they had a defender. I think it was Clark. Manager might have been the impact, so I'm not sure anyway. But we got beat about 4-0. I remember I played as a left wing back that day, as a Blues right back, and absolutely it was a perfectly good tackle, just cleaned me out, great tackle, 50-50. And I had to come off at half time, and I had like blood coming through my sock, and I just thought, oh my God, it's gone again. But that again was a test. I probably couldn't walk for a couple of days, but that again was a test, and that really made me think, right, this, like they did say, this bone will be stronger than ever. And it was, and it turned out that way. And do you know what? The thing that I had problems with from then on, which was my ankles, both my ankles. And even I went to Banbury's game 2 weeks ago, and they won the title, the Sun League against Tamworth. And I'm walking around with me and a few of the old players were there, and some of the Banbury fans are still walking past, going, here he is, glass ankles. Here he is, glass ankles. Here's chopper ankles. And I never had a problem ever again with my leg. Never had a problem again. It was just my ankles that sort of gave up on me in the end.
So was Banbury? As soon as you mentioned their name, there's a smile came straight over your face. Was Banbury sort of like a real sort of fond memories for you when you went there? And how did you end up going to Banbury in the first place?
So I when I left Cheltenham, I went to probably 94, 95. I went to Atherstone, and then I did the. In fact, that year at Atherstone, I think 94, we finished fourth in the Southern Prem, and at that time, there was Crawley, Burton, Gresley were in it. There was some good Wayne, I think there was some good sides in it. And we finished fourth, and it was a wonderful achievement for such a small club. And then obviously they obviously went to I think they changed to Atherstone Town. They had problems financially anyway. But yeah, that was a brilliant achievement at Atherstone. But Then I did the rounds, went to Bedworth, and then I played. No, I didn't. I went to Leicester United. Steve will probably remember these. And Leicester United were a reform club in the Southern Midland Division at the time.
Used to be Enderby.
Was it Enderby Town?
Enderby Town, yeah.
And I remember I went to Leicester United, and then I went there. Then I went to Race Club Warwick, and then Bedworth first spell. I think I'd gone from Bedworth, and Kevin Brock was the manager. And I remember he got hold of a friend of mine, Adi Fuller, and he said, "Oh, look," he said, I need a midfield player, you know, blah blah blah." And he said, "Oh, what about your mate, this Liam O'Neill, like that?" I said, "I've heard some good things about him. I don't know if he's talking about Neil or not, but yeah." So I went to Banbury, and I think I played nearly 200 games for Banbury, and we won a couple of Oxfordshire Senior Cups, and we won the playoffs and got promoted into the Southern Prem when Brocky was there, and yeah, that was a real. We had some. I think I was there for about 5 years, and I missed the 6 months. I had 2 operations on my ankles, but that was a real fun. They were a real good club to play with. A real community club, a real community spirit. But you know, in them days, we were getting, you know, your Salisbury Cities, and there was up there with Dorchester, were up there with us, Salisbury were up there with us all the time, and you know, we're getting like crowds of like 900 or 1,000 on a Tuesday night against Salisbury. And the thing about Banbury United is, when they're doing well, they can get any crowds, and even when they're not doing so well, they're still getting 350, 400. Yeah, and it's just the people at that football club made it feel so special, you know. And even now, I played in Phil Lyons' testimonial, Steve, at Easington in September, and it was brilliant. There was a Phil Lyons team and a Pete Foley team. Anyway, I played for Pete Foley's team, and there was like Alan Judge in goal in our team, and Les Phillips, and Chrissy Allen, and James Constable. So we had quite a good side. Anyway, it's great to see some of the old players and playing it. And anyway, I should have brought the medal. Actually, I got him OM, didn't I? Only last September. Absolutely brilliant. And Kevin Wilson. Lysy said to me, he goes, "How come I never signed you?" He said, "You just got man of the match in my testimonial." I said, "You know what?" I said, "Because I never used to run around as much as I do now." Lysy, like, it was always like, I was at Banbury, he was manager of Brackley. And I said, "You'd have never signed me, mate, them days." I said, because I was never an up and down. I loved it when I got the ball, but I didn't really, you know. But yeah, Banbury got some brilliant memories. Some great people, and we had a get together at the game against Tamworth. There was half a dozen old teammates of the playoff team when we won it the 2003 or 4, I think it was. There was Matty Goodrick and Adi Fuller, Jody Mackay, who's played about 10,000 games for Banbury.
Jason Burnham.
Hey?
Was Jason there, Jason Burnham?
No, Turnham Burnham wasn't there. No, he wasn't. But I did see Jace about just before Christmas. He was helping out a team called, is it Santos?
Northampton Santos. Very, very good.
Yeah, good. Oh, yeah. He was helping a mate out running a junior team. Couldn't believe it.
I know. I saw him with them. But Adi Fuller and Jason, when I was at Wellingborough Town, I was the football chairman there. I appointed them as manager and assistant manager. Yeah, and I've always kept in touch with Jason and Adi. And Adi Fuller always waxes lyrical about the days at Banbury. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I met me and Adi met. Not last Saturday before for the Tamworth game. Anyway, it's funny. So we got to the Banbury game. We'd arranged to meet a few of the lads in Banbury before the game. We were a little bit late, so we've walked all the way from the ground into the town. So we get to the Lytton Tree in Banbury a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, we get there, it's gone. "Oh, by the way, where are you lads?" "Oh, we've walked up to the stadium now. We met Bairdy." He said, "Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, cheers for letting us know." And Aidy's turned around. He goes, "Do you know what?" He said, "I used to play left back at Banbury. You used to play on the left-hand side midfield, mate." And he said, still to this day, he said, "I've still never seen you do as much walking as you did when you played." And Adi always used to say to me, he said, "Biz," he said, you stay over that side of the halfway line and I'll stay on this side of the halfway." He said, "Because you're good that side." He said, "I don't really want you around me in here because you're just an accident waiting to happen." And he said it to this because I weren't a defender, Steve. I couldn't tackle or defend or anything like that. But no, he's a great lad, and what a player he was. What a player Eddie, and should have played a lot higher.
Yeah, yeah.
How many years did you spend, Liam, at Banbury?
I think it was 5 seasons. 5 seasons, yeah. And played. It was Kevin Brock, the old QPR Newcastle player. He was the manager there when I was there. And again, he was Brocky was a real positive on my non-league career, because he got me. You know, he got me, and there was the season where we missed out on the playoffs one season. We were top all the way until I think February, and I think there was ourselves, Salisbury were chasing us, Dorchester were up there with us, and I don't know, Kings Lynn, top 3 or 4 at the time. Anyway, you know, and Brocky and Histon, they were up there as well, and Brocky understood how I played, and he just let me play, you know, and he understood that, you know, I wasn't, you know, I didn't put tackles in, I didn't fly into people, but he understood that I could create. I had an eye for goal, you know, I was clever, I was quite intellectual, I had good feet, and I could cross on both feet, and he got me, and he put people around me in that team that would help me do what I was good at, you know. But we had some very, very good players in that team. I mean, I think they're probably the most. Steve would probably be aware of this guy, Kieran Sullivan. He was the skipper. And Kieran Sullivan, he was captain at me. He was like 5'8", centre half, leader, captain. He was absolutely superb. And again, he was a real sort of a real mentor to me. I think that's probably the right word. You know, he was the one that I knew that if I'd had a decent game, he'd really, really encourage me. But if I didn't, he'd get into me. But he knew how to, you know, I'm not saying I was the sort of player that wanted an arm around me all the time. But I definitely wasn't the sort of player that needed to kick up the backside. I needed in between. And I think that Brocky got me. Yeah. But that season we didn't miss out. We had a striker called on loan from Oxford called Norman Silla. And I think that season, Norman got 40 goals that season. And, you know, he still to this day, we often message each other. And there was another lad in the team called George Redknapp, and he was up there scoring goals as well that year. And then I was like, you know, every other game, I probably scored about 6 goals and probably created about 26. But Silla was just on fire that year. And, you know, and in fact, not funny story. Again, I remember we went to Kings Lynn on New Year's Day, I think it was, and we'd gone 23 games unbeaten. And we went to Kings Lynn, and there was a real big crowd there, and they were up there, and we were up there. I think we were top. We hadn't been beaten for ages, and horrible day. It wasn't great down there at that time. Anyway, we'd gone a goal up. Ollie Strambridge, he scored. And then he got sent off. And of course, me being the luxury player, guess who gets flagged? Me. Yeah. So off I went, 20 minutes to go. Anyway, I went and have a little bit of a stretch down the side of the pitch. And their steward had a bit of a pop at me. And he went, "Oh, listen, mate." He said, "You can't do that." He said, you got to come and... I went, "Oh, shut up, mate." I was a bit annoyed to come off. Like, "Shut up." Probably didn't say shut up. Probably. Probably says all right. And I went back and sat in the dugout. Anyway, I went into the dressing room. The game's still going on. We drew 1-1 in the end. So it's a decent point. But I'd gone into the bar straight after the game and to see my dad. My dad would get me a bottle of Lucozade. Anyway, the steward that had pulled me was in the little players' lounge sort of bit. Anyway, I put my hand on his shoulder. And I went, "Look, mate," I said, "for future reference," I said, "you do your job as a steward and I'll do my job playing football," like that. Anyway, that was that. And he sort of, I went to the bar, and this guy's tapped me on the shoulder, and he went, "Oi, that was assault, that was." I went, "Oh, shut up, mate, no word." He's bit me. He has bit me clean on the cheek, wouldn't let go. I'm thinking, I'm in trouble here. So I pulled away, and I could feel my cheek coming off. And I thought, I've got to go with it. So I just went with him. He literally bit me. I've got a big bite. I had a big bite mark. I've got blood coming outside of my face, a couple of scratches. My dad's getting kicked all over the place on the floor by a couple of his mates, and it all kicked off. I got bit in the bar, and I remember I had to go to went to an ID parade in Kings Lynn. It all kicked off. I mean that, and then it just erupted. It was amazing. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on here, but anyway, I have. But yeah, so I've got a funny story looking back. So yeah, got in the Daily Sport and whatever, a couple of little papers. You know, non-league player gets bit by a fan. It was quite interesting. Yeah, I had great times at Banbury. Met some great people, and like I say, Brocky. That's one thing. I played in this testimonial for Lindsay, and his assistant everywhere Brocky went was a guy called Brian Robinson. Old guy,
the old goalkeeper.
Yeah, old guy, knowledgeable.
Yeah, I played against him. Yeah, only small for a goalkeeper, wasn't he? But
very, but had a real bite on him, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I remember Robbie sort of he was on Nemesis really. Brocky would say how well I'd done in the first half, or how well everybody else had done. No matter how well I'd done, Robbie would go, "Hey, you gotta get tight. You gotta get tight." I'm thinking, Christ almighty, I've just scored one, set one up, Robbie. What do you want me to do? Anyway, so he was a bit of a nemesis for me, but he got the best out of me, even though he never really praised me so much. And then when I played in this testimonial in September for Lindsay, it was really nice because his wife, obviously Robbie's departed now, his wife gave me the medal. And it was a lovely moment, and I was able to sort of give her a kiss on the cheek and say, it's so apt that you're the one giving me this. And, and obviously she didn't know who I was, but, it was a lovely moment. It was a lovely moment. Just a fantastic club. And I really hope they do well. Really, really hope the Puritans do well next year.
Would you say that Banbury was your best club in terms of non-league football?
As a player, yes, definitely. Because, funnily enough, my worst spell was when I went back to VS Rugby. I only played about 25 games. I scored 3 in the first 3, and then never kicked on. And I didn't really. It was because it's my hometown club, and I was the only local lad in the team. I just, even though it's like part-time football, I didn't kind of. I don't know. I just didn't click there because I just didn't click there at my local club, bizarrely. But yeah, and I think definitely Banbury was the most enjoyable part of my career, but that was probably my best part of my career because I was enjoying it the most. It wasn't about the money for me. I was on all right money, but it wasn't about that. It was about just enjoying playing, just about enjoying playing football in them days. The money was a bonus, earning a bit of football money, but that was a bonus. But yeah, that was definitely the most enjoyable part of my career. I must admit though, I did enjoy my time at Bedworth. I had a couple of spells at Bedworth.
Bedworth. Get it right, Bedworth.
Bedworth. Yeah, sorry, Bedworth.
They get annoyed if you say Bedworth.
No, they'll not forgive me for saying Bedworth. Yeah.
One of the things I did notice on here as well is what was from a club name that Steve gave me here. That of course, when I was a kid, we always used to call it Sheepshed Dynamo. But how did that come about?
Funny though, the ground that it's really funny. Everybody's it's synonymous, isn't it now with non-league football? The ground's on Butthole Lane.
Yeah. The Dovecote, yeah.
Yeah, so I know, yeah, but I think that it was quite Evesham. That was another guy. I had a good, decent spell at Evesham. Well, that's another club that I hold sort of close to my heart as well. Because I went there as assistant manager to Paul West as well for a spell. So that was really enjoyable. And then my son, he went there when he'd come out of full-time football about 2 years ago. Went to Evesham to play, so that was nice. But yeah, Banbury was brilliant. Bedworth is a great club. Bedworth gave me my first opportunity in management in my second spell as a player there in 2007. So again, that's something that I will never forget. I mean, how many clubs really will give especially in these days, Southern League club will give I was playing one Saturday, and then a really good friend of mine, Martin Sockett, he then was sacked on the Tuesday, and then I was the most experienced player on the side. And of course, it's just give him the job for a few games. We hadn't won a game for a while, and on about a 6-7 unbeaten run, and they had to give me the job. But that doesn't happen very often now. Giving a 33-year-old, an opportunity to manage a team at Southern League level without any coaching or managerial experience. And I 2.5 years as manager. It's brilliant.
So whereabouts did you? We spoke off air at the beginning. I mean, whereabouts did you meet the old rogue Andy Leese?
Bedworth manager. Yeah. So I was 2007. I think it might have been our second or third game in charge, and we played Cheltenham United at the Oval. And it was quite a funny story because obviously Andy had been, a very experienced manager, and and he knew his stuff. And I'd heard of Andy Leese. I'd heard of him purely because at that time he was very well, even then, very well thought of, even earlier in his career. And you're talking 15 years ago now. But because I was a young manager, I was new to the job, and I wanted to make my mark, and I wore a shirt and a tie and trousers, and I thought at that time that's what he did. I didn't want to look like a player anymore. I've got a manager's job. I want to look like a manager, and I thought a manager would wear a shirt and a tie. So I did. And I remember we played Cheshire, and we beat them 2-1, and they were flying, absolutely flying. We beat them 2-1. How we did, I don't know, but we did. And it wasn't because I was a master tactician. It wasn't because I was a good coach. It was just we were better on the day. And I had because the way Andy is, he's more than happy to have a heated debate in the technical area. And me being 33 at the time, I thought, I'm not having this, mate. I don't really know yet. So I had a real pop at him. And we'd come to not to blows, but it didn't get far away from it. And you're this, and no, you're that, and you haven't got a clue, son, kid, and all this sort of thing. Anyway, that was it. And I remember after the game, I've walked off, cocky as you like. We just beat Cheshire. I'll crack this management game. Third game, fourth game in, and I was sitting outside my wife now, her parents' house after the game. It had been 8 o'clock on the Saturday night. I got a phone call, a number I didn't know. It was Andy Leese, and he went, "All right, Liam, it's Andy Leese, Cheshire manager." I went, "Hi, Andy, all right? Yeah, how you doing?" He goes. And he said, "Just a word in your ear, son," like that. And he didn't have a go at me, but he gave me a bit of a lesson in terms of being a little bit more articulate and a bit more constructive in how you approach experienced managers in the dugout, shall we say. Do your homework, son. Do your homework, son, first before you start having a go at. And do you know what? To this day, that's one thing that I've always. Bit of advice Andy gave me is any manager, even now when I'm in the dugout, you always show that respect to the opposition dugout. Do your homework on what they've done or what they've done in their career. I learned a lesson, as a harsh lesson, but from that day, that phone call, any reports on opposition, any players that I needed watching, any players he needed watching, I did a bit of scouting. Bedworth, and he's remained one of my closest friends in football over the years. But it's not a relationship where we're on the phone to each other every 3 months. I didn't before we went to the race. Well, met him at the races a couple of weeks ago, middle of March. I hadn't spoken to Andy for 2 years, but it was like we can just drop each other a text, and then it's just as though we'd never not spoke for a couple of years, But yeah, he's definitely one that. He stood the test of time any day. He stood the test of time, and he's a really, really clever man. And I think that he deserves all the success he gets, Andy, because there's managers that come and go in non-league football, as you well know, and you, Steve. And to be able to have stood the test of time and been involved at that level for so many years and still have the hunger and still have the desire to do it is a testament to the man.
And hopefully, but of course, by the time this goes out, he'll be step 2 manager.
Absolutely. I'd love nothing more, and he fully deserves that for all the years and the dedication he's put into it.
Well, I mean, Liam, you spoke to Steve a few months back, and when he did a little piece on you. Can you remember, what game you said was your favourite game, and can you also remember who you said was your best 11 players that you actually played with?
I think I would always say the Man United game would be the one. That Man United game, in not Jimmy Knox's testimony, will all be the game purely because it was against my heroes. Walking out onto the pitch and Alex Ferguson's leading the team out, and you can hear Alex Ferguson at half time and after the game barking at Man United, You know, you've been beaten by a bunch of school teachers, bricklayers. You know, even though it's a pre-season game, you know, United actually that year. Yeah, hold on 2 seconds. My son trying to phone me on my phone. Got me. Sod's law. Yeah, and just walking out, and at the time it was a great experience. But looking back now, you know, I look and think, you know, Kanchelskis had just signed, and he's on the same pitch, and Pallister's on the and Robson, and it was just amazing experience, and also playing for my hometown club in that game as well. I mean, the team, the 11. I'll always say the best goalkeeper is probably Alan Nichols, possibly, and you got Kevin Willits, left back. You got people like Paul Tate, a good player. He comes to Banbury. Howard Forrington, Devlin.
I'll read you the side that you said that was your squad. You put Alan Nichols, Cheltenham. Les Robinson, Banbury. Kevin Willits, Cheltenham. Lee Howells, Cheltenham. Terry, is it Angus? VS Rugby. Paul Fitzpatrick from Leicester United. Paul Devlin from Rugby. Paul Tate from Banbury. Nicky Nuttall from Cheltenham. Norman, is it Silva from Banbury? Andy Turner from Banbury. Howard Forinto from Banbury. Christian Moore from Leicester United, Robbie Beard from VS Rugby, and how'd you say it? Bedworth? Bedworth. And Gerard Carr from Coventry, and goalkeeper Ian Marsden. And you also said that your best captain you ever played under was Kieran Sullivan.
Kieran, that, like I spoke about before, he was he's a real captain. And I'll tell you something that's missing. I think with all the young players now, there aren't any. I shouldn't say this. There aren't any. The game nowadays, it's a generation thing. There aren't as many leaders on the pitch. Whereas when I played, you know, in the 90s, early 2000s, there was every team had 5 or 6 leaders. You know, I remember Atherstone in the Southern Prem that year. We finished 4th. We had a back four, including the goalkeeper, Lee Spencer. Our back four, we had Lee Everett right back, Steve Jackson, Malk Randall, and Paul Upton. And Uppy, Malk, Jake, not but those 3, I think were probably all 30 at that stage. And if you didn't do what you should have done, you had it. And you were almost scared making sure that you did what you were what it said on the tin, sort of thing. But we had like leaders all over the pitch. Whereas in this, it's hard enough now for you go speak to any non-league manager now, and they'll say, do you know anybody that's got a good, you know, a fit, strong centre half that can, a captain material leader? There's very few now. You know, when in my day, early days, there was 4 or 5 on the pitch all the time. And Kieran Sullivan was definitely one of those. And again, I think if Sully had probably been 3 inches taller, I think he'd have probably been in the league, probably played lots and lots of football games. But he started at Oxford as a kid, but he'd have played in the league. And I think that's probably what the thing that, you know, let him down really, was just his size.
How did you first get into coaching then? With I know you were assistant manager for a bit when you at Evesham and that, but how did you get into, you know, apart from your managerial side, into coaching?
Yeah, so I went from. So I remember it 2009, and I took Bedworth we got to the 4th qualifying round in the FA Cup. We lost at York City 2-0. I remember after the game, I was on York Radio and I was doing this interview. Martin Foyle was the manager of York at the time. And he pulled me after the game and he said, listen, the way your team's set up today, he said, we're top of the conference. And he said, you've only got beat 2-0. And our goalie got man of the match, he said. And Michael Ingham. And he said, you know, you've set your team up. You can tell your team coached. And to be honest, haven't really been coached. I just put my best 11 players out on the pitch and asked them to play to their optimum level for 90 minutes in that shape. You know, if I knew what I knew now, then we may have got a result. but they weren't coached. And I thought, you know what? I've got the club to the furthest they've ever been in their history, in the FA Cup, and got sacked 6 weeks later, bizarrely. But anyway, that's another story. But then after that, that made me sort of give me that hunger to want to be a coach. So I went in at Shepshed as number 2 with Dave Stringer, and I'd already got me a level 1 and a level 2 you do when you're a scholar when I was at Cheltenham. So I'd already got them, and I thought, you know what, I quite like this coaching lark anyway. So, but I didn't do nothing else about it at the time. But I just started. I said to Dave Stringer at Shepshed, I said, listen, I'll take all the sessions. I'm learning. I want to try and get some experience in coaching. So I did. Then I left Shepshed and went to Paul West phoned me, and I went to Evesham. We did all the coaching there. There was him, great friends of mine, those pair, lovely guys. And then I got a random from Evesham and Southern Prem, and we just stayed up. And I got a random phone call off Paul Holleran at Leamington, and they were just about to go into the playoffs. So I think they got beat in the playoff final against Hensford 3-2. And he said, he asked me about a player, and he said, he said, you'll be with us next year anyway, like that. And I know the way now Paul works. Paul was doing it tongue in cheek, but Paul's really good at sowing seeds. He's past master on it. And I remember, and I'm thinking, yeah, that'd be great. Wouldn't that be great? Go to Leamington. Oh, that'd be first team coach. That'd be amazing. Anyway, that was that. And they've got beat in the playoffs, and then the phone went. Paul Holleran goes, I want to be first team coach. He said, I spoke to Paul West. He's got no problem with you. It's on your doorstep. He said that you put some brilliant sessions on. You can tell you're going to be a good coach. Blah 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 blah. I thought, well, that's really kind words. Da, da, da. He said, so meet me tomorrow night. He said, we'll sort your deal out. He said, be first team coach. I've just lost my first team coach to Birmingham City, Richard Beale, and we want you next season. So no brainer. Went and met him, and then I spent 4.5 years then at Leamington as first team coach first year, and then assistant manager and first team coach for the next 3 and a bit. And again, in terms of my coaching career, that spell at Leamington, I think we won the Senior Cup, and I think we got promoted into the National League North. We beat Hemel. I think Hemel and Stourbridge and Weymouth were pipping us at that time, but we won it by about 10 points, I think, in the end. But Bidford and won it. But that was a brilliant spell. I mean, in terms of, again, as a spell as a coach and at a football club as a coach, I mean, that was just Leamington Football Club are just. Yeah, that's a real classy club, Leamington. I love my time there. And Paul Holleran, everybody, he's probably had, I don't know how many games he's had in charge now, but he's been there 10 years or so, and he's probably, he's like the Ferguson and the Wenger of the non-league, isn't he? I don't think there'll ever be another Paul Holleran that will last so long in a job and do so well on. I don't think Leamington would mind me saying this, but on limited resources.
Yeah, but I know I've asked you this before, sort of in the past, but why have you stayed away from management rather than carried on coaching rather than getting to the management again?
You know why? I think I'm best suited to being a number 2, and I think that is probably because I can sort of play in between. I can give 100% support to the gaffer, but also I can also have that relationship with the players where I can take being the middleman. I think I'm better at being that middleman between the players and taking things to the manager as a number 2, and also enables me to be just really on the training pitch as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, when I got the sack at Bedworth in 2009, I applied for the Sutton Coldfield job, didn't get it. The Gresley job, didn't get it. Rushall, didn't get it. So it got to the stage where I thought, you know what, I can't. I'm not sort of keep knocking the door, and it was almost in that time. There was so many merry-go-round managers that are like been on the scene and and all that. I was never quite given that opportunity again or the right moment as well. But I think that I was better suited to that. And then whatever I did then, I went from Leamington number 2. Then I went to Stratford Town as number 2 with Carl Adams. And at that time, Tommy Wright and Steve Chettle were at Nuneaton at the time, and then they offered me the academy manager's job, and then I left that role at Stratford and went straight to Nuneaton's academy in 2016 or something. But it was, and that's, I'll tell you what the other thing is, Steve, this is another thing, and loads of managers and non-league managers, not football league managers, non-league managers will empathise with this. The money in the game now, especially in non-league as well, there's players that you think you've got, but will go down the road for 10 quid.
Yeah.
You think you've got them. And to be honest with you, the age I'm at now and seeing it, they've been there, they've done it as the player and as the manager, to be honest with you, I can't be arsed with he's on the road for a tenner, but it's 30 miles further, so he's going to put another tenner in petrol and you're going to lose out, mate. So I don't want to. I just couldn't be bothered with chasing non-league players, and there's certain types of manager to be a manager in non-league football. You've got it. I take my hat off to him, because that is a bloody. It's a thankless task. It is a full-time job done in part-time hours for very little recompense, and I all of every non-league manager I admire.
I know you've you broke my heart about 3 years ago when you scored that deflected goal in the last minute in the FA Youth Club beat us. But I asked,
I think it was VAR leading up to that goal.
But I asked this question to a number of our guests who have been involved in both youth football and in adult football. Which do you prefer? Adult football or youth football?
I've never changed playing. Never. I could never. You cannot replicate going over.
No. I mean, in terms of managing stroke coaching, do you prefer adult or youth?
Oh, well, I've done it the other way around. I think I've sort of gone into the Lions Den as a manager at Southern League level at 33, whereas a lot of it's normally the other way around, isn't it? They'll sort of build their way to coaching and then get an opportunity as a manager at non-league at 40 or whatever, and they've gone through the badges with junior setups and academies and all that sort of thing to get the relevant experience. And I was just thrown in at the deep end. And I think that it's probably done me the world of good seeing it in the senior game first and then dropping down, because I think that I'm not sure. I'm obviously it's different types. You're dealing with different types of players. Like, for example, I always use it as an example. When we were at Leamington, we had Steph Moore playing for us, and Steph was obviously playing the Premier League for Villa and for QPR there. And I always say to my young players and say, you know what? If I've been able to coach Stephen Moore in training sessions and he's took advice on board from me, and nobody compared to Stephen Moore, then I'm sure you can take my advice as well. And it humbles younger players. And I think that little things like that, I think I've done it. I'd like to think for my career, I've done it the right way for me, to help me. It might be different for other people, but that's helped me no end going in at senior level and working my way down. And I think it's taught me quite a lot of life lessons as well, gaining experience and the cutthroat end of it, where you lose 3, you get the sack. And I think it's taught me to be patient. That's a definite. But I think with the success that we've had, not me, we've had, my staff and all the players that I've worked with in the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years at the academies, I'd probably say that the thrill and the buzz of seeing young players develop, and you know this only too well, I'm probably sure you probably think maybe the same as I do, that watching them develop and seeing them move into the Football League, like we've had a couple and an international in one of our kids last month, that's the thing that spurs me on. That's why I do it. It's just it's trying now to develop young people, and also giving them the experiences, good and the bad, that I've had as a player. Also learning from the good experiences of the good managers, and I wouldn't say the bad managers, because I don't think any of them are bad managers, but the better managers and the different types of managers and taking the good from the bad from all of them and what to take from them and what not to take from them. And I think that's made me a much better academy, like youth development coach now. But seeing young, you know the way I work, Steve, which is great. Really, it's all about the player. It's all about the development. And my passion is just to make them enjoy football, make them better people with these academy programs that I run, better educated, better players, and make them better people. And try and do as probably sometimes I even say to players, listen, boys, I wasn't perfect, and I made some really, really bad mistakes. Like when I was at Cheltenham, I couldn't wait to get on the train and go home at lunchtime training. And I'm telling my young players now, go and get a bag of balls out, go and practice your crossing, go and make your feet quicker, go and practice your finishing. But I didn't. But I'm giving them the value of my experience by saying that maybe if I had done, then I would have been a better player off the back of it. So I'm not all, all singing, all dancing, you do what I do. I'm giving them the experience of where I failed, in essence. But the biggest phrase, you can probably relate to this, Steve. The one phrase that I hate in football, and you see it quite a lot, is when young players, they've had a great season one year, then they don't have a great season, then at Christmas there's a tweet or something, I'm not playing this season, I fell out of love with the game. Yeah. I'm not being funny. I fall out of love with football every day, right? At some stage, right? You have to do that. You've got to go and see that. You've got to go do this. You've got to go and sort the officials out. You've got to go and pay the fines. I fall out of love, go and watch the kids. I fall out of love with football every day. And I keep sort of saying to young players, listen, you clearly don't love it enough then. Because if you did, if you didn't love football, Steve, you've been in football 700 years now, right?
Well, 35, yeah.
Right, and I say to all these young kids, I said, what you've got to realise is, in this day and age now, football, I say to all the young, football owes you, football owes you nothing, lads. It owes you nothing. You owe everything to football. If I hadn't met football, I'd probably have no mates. I'd have never have met you for a start. I wouldn't know you, Dave. Andy Lees, all these people that we're talking about that we know, that's through football. So I owe everything. I owe everything to football. I know it's, harping on about, I love football. Yeah, I do love football. It's my life, it's my passion. But I do. I owe it all to football. And the way the game is in this day and age, football owes these young players nothing. And I always I want them to embrace that. And I try and sort of impose my thought process on them in that manner.
I think that's a fantastic way to finish. And Liam, it's been an absolute pleasure. Meeting you today and having a chat today. So it's been absolutely fantastic, I must admit. And
I still won't ever forgive you. I know that.
Hey, I'll tell you what though, Steve. I know you won't, but that year we got to the first round and we got picked at Grimsby. But this, I think, we're saying about it. Sorry, Dave, to carry on, but this year in terms of youth, I mean, we got to the third round this year. And we were the only part-time team left in the country. And I tell this story quite a lot. And I say, listen, we beat Morecambe, we beat Solihull Moors, we got beaten third round by Cheltenham. We were terrible. But the night before, Arsenal got knocked out at Colchester. So we got further than Arsenal.
So, now we definitely will finish now after that. but in all fairness, But in all fairness, listen, Liam, massive thank you for giving up your time tonight. Really appreciate that. Me and Steve will be back, and of course our next guest is Dave Northfield, and we'll have him on the show. And that is a fantastic interview with Dave. So don't miss that. But from me and Steve, and from Liam, a massive thank you for watching tonight, and we'll see you again soon. Good night.